Given the growing concerns around kind of college affordability, student completion, a number of states have adopted these excess credit hour policies as a mechanism to incentivize students to complete in a kind of a timely manner. And this is also exacerbated by the fact that we have these like shrinking state resources for funding post-secondary education. And so these policies establish a predetermined threshold of credits that students can take before they get charged like an additional rate. And these rates range between a 10% increase to a 200% increase. And these thresholds also vary. And so we were really interested in looking at what are the effects of these surcharges or these excess credit hour policies on not only student completion, but also student debt and responses to these policies. And so I guess our findings kind of demonstrate that there really was no change in institutional graduation rate or degree production in response to these policies. And we were really surprised by that, given that the whole policy conversation around these was to incentivize completion and timely graduation. What we did find is that student debt increased after the adoption of these policies. And so what we find is that there is this cost shift burden away from the states to the individual students after the adoption of these policies. And we were trying to think about why is this happening or what's going on. And what we came up with is that there's potentially an information gap between state policymakers and the individual students who are affected by these policies, particularly that students probably only get exposed to the policy or the effects of the policy when they're really close to that threshold, right? So in most cases, it takes 120 credits to get a bachelor's degree. The average state with excess credit hour policy has 145 as their threshold. Students only know about this policy when they get close to that 130, 140 credit hours, and it's too late for them to make significant changes to their kind of program of study. And so in the paper, we argue that this policy may be enhanced by additional information or degree planning that could occur early in kind of the student's career. I think another finding we had was that disproportionately low-income and middle-income students are affected by this policy, right? Their median debt levels increase more than students who come from kind of more affluent backgrounds. We also found that the institution type matters as well. So students attending bachelor only or master's granting institutions experience the vast majority of the increases in debt, and students attending research universities or doctoral granting institutions experience very little changes in their debt. And we kind of think through the mechanisms of that, and we find that that's probably related to two factors. One, the types of students attending the research universities typically are more affluent, more academically, higher academic backgrounds, as well as the amount of money and resources these institutions have to fund institutional aid. So the combination of those creates an opportunity for institutions to kind of mediate the effects of these policies for these more affluent students. For our underrepresented, low-income, first-generation college students, we're finding that they don't have the educational capital potentially to navigate this like ambiguous policy environment, and so they're feeling the largest kind of effects on debt. We also found that like non-completers have the largest increase in their debt. So not only do these students not get the bachelor's degree, they leave school with the largest amount of increases in debt. And so they have this kind of double effect, right? So we don't see the direct effect of incentivizing completion, but then we see these kind of large effects on their ability to kind of repay or their debt burden once they graduate. I think for us, what was surprising is that there's a number of states that actually have these policies in place. We initially thought there was a small few, but we found a number of states that incentivize student completion through these policies. But probably more importantly was the variation in these kind of thresholds and credits. So states, like I said, like North Carolina, that have a very narrow tuition threshold, but have a very small surcharge, compared to like a Wisconsin that has a very generous threshold, but has a very large kind of surcharge if you cross that. And so where's that balance, I think was a surprise to us that there wasn't more continuity in those policies.